On the battlefields of the 21st century, accuracy is not optional. The world's major military powers, like the United States, need to have ways to strike their targets with pinpoint precision, sometimes from literally hundreds of miles away. There's just one problem: the kinds of munitions capable of such precise attacks, like long-range cruise missiles, cost a huge amount of money to make. Joint air-to-surface standoff missiles, JASSMs, for example, cost more than $1 million per unit. Tomahawks cost over $3 million each. Even with a military budget of almost $1 trillion, the US can't afford to simply mass-produce such expensive munitions, and it certainly can't afford to waste them. But what if there was another way? A way to transform relatively cheap, dumb bombs into deadly cruise missiles, with elite levels of range and precision, for a fraction of the usual price. There is, and the United States Navy is now exploring this genius approach through 4 new types of precision-guided weapon concepts, potentially expanding and evolving the American arsenal like never before. The idea of turning unguided or dumb bombs into smart, precision-guided munitions isn't new. The US has been using Boeing's Joint Direct Attack Munition, JDAM, guidance kits for several decades, with several 100,000 units produced since 1999. These bolt-on packages are comprised of several components, including aerodynamic tail sections, strake kits, and combined inertial and GPS guidance control units. When affixed to a simple unguided bomb, like a 2,000-pound Mk-84, for example, the JDAM dramatically increases its performance and potential, enabling aircraft to strike fixed-ground targets with exceptional accuracy. To be more precise, JDAMs have been proven to improve bomb accuracy to within 16 feet, 5 meters, of their intended targets. Plus, since they use both GPS and inertial navigation to strike their targets, they can be used in all weather conditions, unlike dumb or laser-guided weapons, which typically require clear skies for effective usage. JDAMs also have the benefit of compatibility with most US combat aircraft, including F-18 and F-35 fighter jets and B-2 bombers. But perhaps their biggest and best advantage is their affordability. JDAM kits cost between $21,000 and $36,000. That's a tiny fraction of the 7-figure price tags typically attached to cruise missiles. What's more, the US has vast stockpiles of dumb bombs, just waiting to be converted into smart, precision-guided munitions and unleashed on the country's enemies. In the 2000s, Boeing took the JDAM concept further, developing the JDAM Extended Range, or JDAM LR, a new version of the original JDAM kit that allowed bombs to glide much greater distances of around 45 miles, 72 kilometers. That's 3 times further than the original JDAM, or around the same operational range as M142 HIMARS rockets. It's an impressive distance, but it still pales in comparison to the likes of the JASSM cruise missile, which can travel several hundred miles before striking its targets. Fortunately, Boeing had something else up its sleeve, an even more powerful JDAM kit, with a range to truly rival some of the world's best missiles. Introducing the Joint Direct Attack Munition Long Range, or JDAM LR. Boeing first laid out the concept for this kit back in 2010, when it proposed adding a jet engine tail kit to the existing JDAM LR package. At the time, the US military showed little interest in the idea, but by 2020, things had changed. Then, in April 2026, the US Navy announced it had carried out successful flight tests of the baseline JDAM LR, which, according to Boeing officials, includes a TDI J85 turbojet engine that allows these brand new smart bombs to travel far further than previous models, with a base range of around 200 nautical miles, 230 miles, or 370 kilometers, and the potential to go even further. The baseline JDAM LR is also set to be the foundation for 3 additional variants of this guidance kit, each with its own benefits and purpose. There's the Decoy JDAM LR, For example, the Quickstrike LR and the Maritime Strike LR. The incredible range of these weapons brings the JDAM to a whole new level of performance, allowing the US to turn dumb bombs into highly precise standoff weapons that can be launched from relatively safe locations, far from enemy air defenses. The likes of fourth-generation fighter jets and stealth bombers, for example, could launch these weapons against targets deep inside enemy territory without putting themselves at any elevated risk in the process. As U.S. Navy Captain Sarah Abbott, the Precision Strike Weapons Program Manager, explains, as naval air forces in theater continue to rely heavily on JDAM systems, the program recognizes a critical need to provide the fleet with greater standoff range. This new capability allows pilots to engage targets from significantly safer distances, maintaining a tactical advantage in contested environments. And the LR doesn't just bring better range. These new kits are also said to deliver advanced onboard power generation capabilities that would make these bombs significantly smarter, unlocking new features and functionalities, like two-way data links or advanced seeking systems to make each munition even more accurate against moving targets or in environments that are affected by electronic warfare. Before we explore the technical specifications and capabilities of the various types of JDAM LR that the Navy will soon have at its disposal, here's a closer look at the actual testing process, which occurred at the Navy's Point Mugusi range, just off the coast of California. Before we explore the technical specifications and capabilities of the various types of JDAM LR that the Navy could soon have at its disposal, here's a closer look at the actual testing process, which occurred at the Navy's Point Mugusi range, just off the coast of California. There, 2 JDAM LRs were launched from U.S. Navy F18 Super Hornets during separate test flights. Each weapon traveled roughly 200 nautical miles after separating from its fighter, with one of the tests also involving altitude changes and weapon maneuvering during flight before striking within meters of its intended target. Notably, the bombs were also launched using the existing JDAM interface that is already part of F-18s and various other aircraft in the U.S. fleet. That matters because it effectively means that the rollout of these JDAM LRs should be both swift and seamless. Aircraft won't need to undergo time-consuming modifications or new system installations. Instead, the new kits can simply be equipped to many of the tactical and strategic aircraft that have already used JDAMs in the past. The first test reportedly took place on April 1 and involved the JDAM LR flying for 34 minutes using its own turbojet engine power before striking within just a few meters of its intended target. Given that this type of system is typically attached to bombs weighing a minimum of 500 pounds, 226 kilograms, that sort of margin of error is perfectly acceptable, as the explosive blast would still be strong enough to deal significant damage to any nearby structure. A couple of days later, on April 3, the second test took place, albeit with a couple of key differences. This time, rather than flying a relatively linear, straightforward path to its target, the JDAM LR was tasked with following a more complex flight profile, which included sudden altitude changes and in-air maneuvers. These kinds of movements would be needed in real-world combat conditions to help these smart munitions evade enemy defenses and have a better chance of reaching their targets. Again, the test was said to be a big success, with the precision-guided munition reportedly covering a similar distance and achieving a similar outcome to the one launched on April 1. This is incredibly encouraging news. The testing provided clear demonstrations of safe weapon separation, the ability to interface with existing aircraft systems, and controlled, powered free flight and navigation at far greater distances than any pre-existing JDAM system. In other words, it proved that the JDAM LR was no longer just a pipe dream, but a real, functional piece of hardware, ready to transform dumb bombs like Mk-82, 83, and 84s into carrier-based jet-propelled cruise missiles, capable of not only flying for hundreds of miles, but doing so at high speeds. Two experts have estimated that the JDAMs used in the early April tests were most likely traveling at around 400 miles per hour, if not more, based on the distance they covered and their recorded flight times. The best part of all is that just like previous JDAM iterations, the JDAM LR is nowhere near as expensive as an actual cruise missile would be. It does come with a higher price tag than the original JDAM and the more advanced JDAM ER, with a total system cost estimated at around $200,000 per unit. But when you compare that to the $1 million or more price tags associated with JASSMs and Tomahawks, the difference is clear to see. For the cost of just one JASSM, the US could create 5 JDAM LR bombs. For the same price as a Tomahawk, it could have over 10 long-range precision munitions, ready to rain hell down on its enemies. Before we look in greater detail at the unique LR variants that the Navy could soon be working with, if this is the kind of insight you want more of, make sure you're subscribed to the Military Show. We break it down like this every week. The baseline JDAM LR is already extraordinary, with the potential to give one stum 500-pound bombs an operational range in excess of 300 nautical miles, 345 miles, or 555 kilometers. But Boeing clearly intends to push this technology as far as it can, and in a wider range of ways than experts initially imagined. The first of the 3 additional variants of this system is the JDAM LR Decoy.